Last month, thank you, David. Last month, an organization called the American Enterprise Institute hosted a conference in Washington, D.C. on the changing nature of American families. At this event, 3 scholars discussed recent changes in American family structure, examining what important economic and cultural consequences are looming on the horizon due to what they call the crumbling architecture of the American family. W. Bradford Wilcox of the National Marriage Project described a growing crisis among American men who have lost their connections with core American institutions, including the workplace, religious congregations, and marriage. Mary Eberstadt of the Ethics and Public Policy Center explained that robust religious engagement and family life often go hand in hand. As more U.S. couples have chosen to cohabitate, divorce, or never marry, religious participation is decreasing. And author Nick Schultz acknowledged that talking about a breakdown in family structures can be uncomfortable, yet its harmful impact on children and the economy requires us to look more squarely at the facts. The facts, they say, are that in the last 50 years, the percentage of U.S. children raised by a single parent increased from 5% to almost 40%. According to Jason DeParle of the New York Times, for women aged 30 and below, childbearing without marriage has become the new normal. Now, while in 1960, almost 70% of Americans aged 20 to 29 were married, today only 25% are married. And for those who do marry, the divorce rate remains high, tripling in the time between 1960 and 2008. This, all of the 3 speakers claimed, was proof of a crushing blow to one of the most enduring building blocks of society, and quoted The Economist in saying the iconic American family is fading. And a Pew Research Center study released in July stated that the American family is on a steep decline. The statistics revealed in the study claim that the United States is the worst in the world in a whole series of categories, including family, marriage, childcare. The facts and the figures at first glance noted in the Pew Family Study appear to validate the controversial libertarian Charles Murray's opinions about the direct link between the strength of a family and the overall health of a society. Although if we read into that report a little further, we find some interesting information on the resilience of our families and how the general public defines family. The decline of marriage, they wrote, has not knocked family life completely off its pedestal. 3/4 of all adults say their family is the most important element in their life, and 3/4 say that they are very satisfied with their family life. More than 8 in 10 say the family they live in now is as close or closer than the family in which they were raised. By huge margins, those surveyed did not see marriage as the only path to family formation. 86% said a single parent and child are a family. 80% said an unmarried couple living together with a child is a family. 63% said a gay or lesbian couple raising a child is a family. The presence of children clearly mattered in their definitions, because if a cohabitating couple had no children, a majority of the public said they are not family. And marriage mattered. If a childless couple was married, 88% said they are family. So what does all this mean? In the simplest of terms, if you are hoping for a family that looks like the Cleavers, the Bradys, or the Huxtables, or any other so-called perfect home and family you're most likely going to be sorely disappointed. There's a great book that's called The Way We Never Were. And it is all about the illusion of the perfect traditional American family. And it combats this idea that family is crumbling. The research of Stephanie Kuntz showed in that work that there has always been a tremendous variety of family types that have worked and not worked throughout history. When families succeeded, it was often for reasons quite different than the stereotypes about the past suggest. It was often for reasons like they were flexible in their living arrangements or had people and institutions beyond their family that they could call on for help or support. And when families failed, the results were often devastating. What she found was that there never was a golden age of family life, a time when all families were capable of meeting the needs of their members and protecting them from harm. Yet knowing that there was no golden age in history doesn't satisfy most people. Okay, they say, so the past wasn't great, and people have been lamenting the breakdown of the family since colonial days. John Watson, the most famous child psychologist of the early 20th century, predicted in 1928 that marriage would be dead by 1977. And in 1977, the noted sociologist Amitai Etzioni announced that by mid-1990, not one American family will be left. I perform enough marriages each year and work with enough families to let you know, in case you were worried, neither one of those things is true. Bottom line, family is changing. Family is expanding. Family may be different today than it was in 1960, maybe. One thing remains the same. Families of all shapes and sizes and configurations need now, as they did throughout time, support, empathy, strong communities who hold a wide vision and carry an open heart. We cannot help contemporary families if we accept, as many other institutions do, a one-dimensional analysis of where their problems originate, insist that there is only one blueprint for how all families should look and act, or give sweeping pronouncements about correct family structure. Reports on the crumbling American family speak in generalities, and we know that none of us live on a general level. We live in a complicated real world where similar sounding problems have radically different causes and require very different solutions. Now, Stephanie Kuntz wrote a second book, The Way We Never Were, and then her second one, The Way We Really Are. And she ended the whole book with these words: "We will not solve our problems by looking backward. It's time to start thinking in the future tense. I like to look at it as adding dimension to the line the family values crusaders try to draw between good families and bad. When you work on a flat surface, a line is a line, and the longer you make it, the further apart the two ends get. But once you start working in 3 dimensions, you can bend that line to form a circle. When that happens, the longer you extend your line, the more your circle can encompass. Isn't it time to stop drawing dividing lines between families and start bringing as many of them as possible into our circle of care and support?" This, I believe, is where we come in. Sarah Goodman, our ministerial intern, shared with me the story of her friend, whose family are members of the UU Church of San Diego, where Sarah was raised. In the spring of 2012, Les and Scott Grant Smith marked their 25th wedding anniversary. The couple raised 2 daughters along the way. But 15 years ago, they hit a crisis that nearly shattered their family. Les was keeping a secret, and it became a problem. But they solved it as a family in a way that kept them together and happy. In the weeks leading up to that day, back in 1997, Les was certain of 2 things. She was a mother who loved her daughters, and she was also transgender, believing she was born in a body of the wrong sex. Les grew depressed and withdrawn, terrified that revealing her need to live her life as a man would mean losing Scott and their daughters. Weeks passed in which the couple barely spoke, and finally Scott confronted his wife just 2 days before Thanksgiving. In the conversation that followed, Les shared what he always knew about himself, and also shared that if it meant losing Scott and the girls, he wouldn't transition. There was much for them to consider. Scott wondered if he should leave. Was he the problem? Would it be better for Les and the girls without him? With Les's secret now in the open, they decided to work to stay together. In 1997, Les began hormone treatments as part of the process of beginning to live his life as a man. Amanda, he says, was 7 at this point, and I explained to her where this was going. And she burst into tears and threw herself into my lap and said, "Oh, please, please don't change into a man. If you have to change into anything, couldn't it be a cat?" And there were other issues that would arise. Spontaneous affection. We couldn't do it comfortably anymore, Les says. And Scott says a lot of it was me. It was my problem, because it became clear that I would be perceived as gay. But I realized that I didn't fall in love with a couple of body pieces. I fell in love with a person, and I decided this is that person. Les had a great concern for his girls. What would it be like for them? My greatest fear was, girls learn how to be women from their mothers. And I was terrified that I was going to totally screw them up, and that they wouldn't be comfortable in their own skin. And my only defense against that in my mind was to go, they'll see love, and they will have that be what makes a relationship and a family work. And that love is what Les and Scott and their girls received from their congregation. Not shame, not judgment, not proclamations about the right or the wrong kind of family. They received love and celebration, dignity and respect that literally saved their family and their lives. Isn't that what we're all longing for? Sarah told me a great anecdote last night that in San Diego they have a service every summer that is a family celebration service that highlights a family. And one summer it was Scott and Leslie and their girls. And the next summer it was Scott and Les and their girls. That congregation celebrated that family 2 years in a row. It is my deepest longing that our communities, our Unitarian Universalist congregations, will do just that. That they will be places where we champion the dignity of the human person over and against the dehumanizing forces of our society. We are here to celebrate humanity in all our diversity, our beauty, our failings, our triumphs, all of us, and declare us beautiful and whole and good. There is a poem that I pull out every once in a while. It haunts me. It's called Rain by Naomi Shihab Nye, and I want to share it all with you. A teacher asked Paul what he would remember from 3rd grade, and he sat a long time before writing, "This year somebody touched me on the shoulder," and turned his paper in. Later, she showed it to me as an example of her wasted life. The words he wrote were large as houses in a landscape. He wanted to go inside them and live. He could fill in the windows of O and D and be safe, while outside birds building nests in drain pipes knew nothing of the coming rain. I say that it haunts me because my heart aches when I read this poem. For the teacher who feels that her life, her work is nothing but failure. For this young boy whose highlight of the year was that he was touched. What is happening in his home? Where is his love and affection coming from? What is he learning? Who is reaching out to him? My friends, why are we here? Not just us individually who got up today and said, well, I know it's raining, but I better go anyway. The choir's singing. I love seeing the teens. They're always spectacular. Or maybe your son or your daughter or your partner needed to be here for religious education, or maybe you came for a message of hope or connection. Whatever your personal reason, why are we, I mean the big we, here? Why is this congregation here? Why is Unitarian Universalism here? We could each answer this in our own way. It could be a sermon series, the point of religious community. So I'm just going to give you one answer today that ties in with family and is inspired by that young boy who desperately needed human touch. We are here to reach out, to take our message of religious and theological pluralism that we are so comfortable with and turn it into a spiritual practice, an ethic of pluralism. We are here so that no one is left behind or forgotten, so that all have a place and a family to come home to. In the latest issue of the UU World, Peter Morales, who's president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, wrote these words: "Love reaches out. That is the essence of love. Love is our longing for deep connection. The search for connection is at the heart of all spiritual practices and traditions. The spiritual journey is a pathway into the depths of our own being and also a journey of transcending the stifling confines of the self. Profound spiritual experiences are those of union with others and ultimately with the great mystery of life, because we are profoundly and fundamentally relational creatures. Reaching out may begin as something we feel we ought to do or need to do, but the very act of reaching out changes us. I have seen it time and again. In a time of such human isolation and alienation, of such hunger for true community, reaching out in love is more than a spiritual practice. It is a moral obligation. It is the equivalent of feeding the hungry. People around us are hungry for someone to reach out to them. Why are we here? To reach out, to widen our vision and open our hearts, to make room for all, to be a place where no one gets left behind or forgotten. I believe our communities are places where we demand hope, where we save lives, and where we have the audacity to care. Maybe these are the dreams and the ramblings of an overly sentimental mother of two young boys who wants the world they live in to be just a little bit different, a little kinder, a little gentler, a world that says yes to life, to them, to all. Layla Ibrahim, Director of Children and Family Ministries at the First Unitarian Church in Oakland, California, agrees with me. She says that we are not in church to be with people who want to sing the same music or rally for the same cause or attend the same retreats. We are in church to learn to love better. And learning to love better can only happen when we love past our disappointments and return to a place of acceptance and affirmation. This is true in our personal lives, in our work lives, in our congregation's life. It is a deep spiritual practice. And we can do this. In 1941, during World War II, A. Powell Davies, one of the greats of Unitarian ministers, said that the best we can do in this world, in this life, is to go on being kind. To believe that this is possible in a world of unspeakable cruelty and pain. Believe that we can bring out the best in ourselves and one another. To find a way using our creativity, our imagination, our good hearts, our strong wills to just go on being kind. So I will leave you today with this prayer from Marta Valentin. It's a wonderful prayer for families, for all of us, for all of life. Spirit of life that abounds and surrounds us. As we walk our individual paths in our individual worlds at our individual pace, we have all been led here this day to this convocation of human spirits where we can revel in each other's light, where we can share just how similar our individual paths seem in a world that reflects back the negativity of difference. Thank you for your patience as we roam in circles, searching for the hand that we do not notice right beside us, or the face full of love and devotion that we do not recognize as our own. Spirit of this world and beyond, we strive to keep aware of our interconnections, our interdependence, our trust in one another as humans being, loving, being in truth and with compassion, for we know that what we send out into the universe is what will return. And we wish to send our love to restore this broken world. Blessed be, and amen.